Hey everybody, Taikathaya here, and welcome to the first episode of Good as New! The show where I take a look at classic games and review them as if they just came out today. Now I know what you're thinking. Why? Well, let me explain. If there's one thing I hate, it's when people break gamers down into groups. But I'm about to break gamers down into groups. The first group I notice are classic gamers. They tend to put older games on a pedestal, saying that modern games can't hold up to them, they're nowhere near as good, they're too easy, things like that. The other group, modern gamers, thinks that, well, look at them. How can anything that looks like this be better than something that looks like this? It's just not possible. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but both of you are assholes. A lot of older games are fantastic, are absolute classics, but that doesn't mean that newer games can't be better. Hell, they had this great classic to base themselves on, and looks can very well be deceiving. I mean, God of War Ascension was the absolute best looking God of War game, but it was by no means the best game in the series. So there's my reasoning. Now, the next thing you're probably thinking is this really fair? I mean, modern games do have advantages classic games don't. And I hear you. So here's what I'm saying. I'm not giving the games a score. I'm not saying, oh, you know, this can only be like a 6 today. No. I'm only answering one question. Does the game hold up? That's it. Only question is, would the game hold up today? Now, here are some other things I'm going to add into the mix. Number 1, graphics are not even being looked at. I may mention that I personally don't like or do like the graphics, but they will not factor into the review. Music is only going to factor in if it's really beneficial to the game or a real detriment. Now, I do have one more twist to throw into the mix. You see, like I said, I'll be reviewing these games as if they just came out today, which means that every single other entry in the series is already out. So I could take a look at the original Legend of Zelda, don't worry, I'm not gonna look at that one, and compare it to Skyward Sword or Ocarina of Time, because as far as I'm concerned, this game came out later. Don't worry, I'm not gonna pretend that that actually happened, I'm not gonna be that cheesy, but still. So that means it will have to compare to every game that's come afterwards, which will make it a lot easier to determine, is this really such a great game? Is this really the best game in the series? Is A Link to the Past the best Zelda game? Well, we'll find that out next week, wink wink. But for today, Spyro the Dragon, the games came out so close together, that whole twist isn't really important. So, let's dive right into the game, Spyro the Dragon. Remember, that's the thing I'm supposed to be talking about, and I just talked for like 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. It's not so much. So, the review. Spyro the Dragon is a very important game to me. It's the first console game I ever played, and now I haven't played it since I was about 5 or 6, so I can really look back on it with a fresh perspective. So, what's the premise of the game? Well, Spyro is a young purple dragon who is the only dragon not turned to stone by the evil, nasty Nork. Why did he turn all the dragons to stone? Well, it goes a little something like this.
Nasty Nork is a simple creature. Simple! He has been contained in a remote world and is no threat to the Dragon Kingdom. No threat! Besides, he is ugly. That does it!
Did I just laugh at a joke from 1998? You don't understand, I am notorious for not finding old jokes funny. And that's one of the first things I noticed coming back to this game. It's funny. Nothing hilarious, but a lot of the jokes, typically when you rescue dragons, actually land pretty well. And I found that pretty impressive.
Hey, Spyro! Press the jump button twice to glide, and don't be afraid.
Afraid? Of what?
Falling from high mountain peaks, plummeting into prehistoric glaciers?
Oh, that.
So, like it or not, with any game you have to ask the question, how does the game play? Well, pretty well. The controls for the game are relatively simple. X to jump, press it again to glide, square to charge, circle to flame, triangle to look around. Oh, you can also roll with the L1 and R1 buttons, but they never tell you that, and it's completely worthless. One thing that remained throughout the entire Spyro series are the addition of big and armored enemies. Armored enemies could not be hurt by your flame attack, so you had to charge them. The bigger enemies couldn't be affected by your charge, so you had to kill it with fire. One thing I've noticed about games from the N64 and PlayStation era is that they tend to have a bit of input lag. Like, you'll press a button to attack, and it'll take just a split second before the attack goes through. Or you'll take your finger off the control stick, and they'll keep walking for just a second, but that second is long enough for them to walk off a cliff and die! What the hell, Mario?! Sorry. But with Spyro the Dragon, there's really none of that. It's very, very tight. And I went back to check some of the later games, and oddly enough, it's still pretty good, but there's more lag. Spyro the Dragon, the original game in the series, has less input lag than the next two. And I just don't get it. Can someone explain this to me? I mean, why? 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 I think the design of Spyro the Dragon might be my favorite thing about the game. I mean, a lot of modern games now are dark and gritty and violent. Spyro's just fun and colorful. I especially love that each of the worlds you go to has its own unique design. Like the Artisans versus the Peacekeepers, or Beastmaker's world, that's all a swamp. It's all just a big swamp, and it still manages to be pretty entertaining. I don't know, the game is a lot of fun to look at, it's very creative, and to be honest, just this category alone, this game excels. Now remember, I said I'm not going to talk about music. So now let me talk about music. Like I said, I'd talk about it if it was worth talking about, if it was something really good or really bad. And the music in Spyro the Dragon is fantastic. I mean, sure, it sounds like what you'd expect from the era, but it's just so catchy. I mean, if you don't believe me, go back, listen to the rest of the review, just listen to the music. Ignore me talking, you're already doing that anyway. Just listen to the music. It's great. The music in this game is phenomenal. The music I'm playing now is the music that plays during the boss, Toasty. And also in the Nork Nexus homeworld. It's the last homeworld. And speaking of the bosses, well... Why? Spyro! You were doing so well! I mean, the design and the gameplay, music! Why do your bosses suck? And here, sadly, we have the biggest problem with the game. The boss battles. And actually, battles is not the right word. These are more boss encounters. Mainly because it's not much of a fight. You fight your way through a level, get to the boss, chase them down a bit, hit them, chase them down again, hit them, they die. That is pretty much every boss fight, but I'm gonna give you the rundown of all of them. First up, we have Toasty. Toasty is a sheep on stilts. I'm not kidding. No, I know, it doesn't look like it. But, sheep on stilts. Great first boss, everybody. Woohoo! The second boss, Dr. Shemp, is... okay, I kinda like this fight. It's the only one that really does feel like a boss battle. And plus, just look at him, he's awesome. This one, you actually have to get around him and flame him. It's about that, really. Then you do the rest of the chasing, but it's actually a pretty solid fight, so I give this guy credit. The third boss, Blowhard, is... wind. Yeah, he's wind. Woohoo. But does he have special windy powers? Does he blow you? Do you fly while you're fighting him? That would be so cool. You're fighting some spirit of wind flying through the... oh, no, sorry. You hit him, chase him down a bit, and hit him again. It's just as easy as every other fight. Next! I think Metalhead might actually be the worst boss in the game. He's a giant robot, So, pretty cool right there. Really the first one that looks like it could be a boss. So how do you fight him? You don't. You pretty much pull the plug. How does the fight go? You go in, he starts shooting things at you and electrifies some pillars. You hit the pillars when they're not electrified and he dies. It's that simple. Are there no good boss fights in this game? Well, Dr. Shemp, actually. While I hardly remember the fight, the one boss whose name I remembered from when I was a kid was Jacques. I just happen to remember that the second to last boss was named Jacques. And what is he? He's a giant jack-in-the-box, I think. I mean, he looks like just a guy on a spring, but... See, right there, doesn't he kind of look like a jack-in-the-box? Anyway, same thing as always. You jump up to him instead of running, though. And you flame him, and he dies. Oy. Well, that's it. I mean, no matter how good the game was, if all of the bosses suck, can you really come back from that? Of course. There's one more boss. Nasty Nork. Well, what's the boss like? It is fantastic. You know how I mentioned that all of the bosses in this are more boss encounters than battles? Well, no, this is no exception. But it blends absolutely everything about the game. The very beginning of the encounter gives you 2 thief chases. These are some of the most fun things in the game, and they completely disappear after the 3rd world. And it really made me happy to see them come back. Afterwards, you chase Nasty Nork, but unlike the other bosses who you just have to follow, he will run. If you don't get to him in time, he'll run and you'll have to keep chasing. So not only do you have to catch him fast enough, but you also have to control yourself while charging on a very windy path. Afterwards is a bunch of jumping and gliding over lava, and if you fall, it is game over. You have to do the fight from the beginning. And to be honest, this is a great battle for a platformer, because it combines all of the game's platforming elements. I mean, the combat in the game really is simple as press square or circle to kill the enemy. And this boss fight really made me see it. Unfortunately, going back, the other bosses still suck, but Nasty Nork more than makes up for it, and is a fantastic boss for a platformer. So, at the end of the day, there's only one question to answer. Does Spyro the Dragon hold up? Absolutely. Sure, the boss battles may suck, but the game itself is still a phenomenal platformer, and we don't see that many platformers left today. Personally, I think the game would still do very well today. Maybe not as well as it did back in 1998, but still pretty well. With a market dominated by dark and gritty games, it would be a welcome change of pace for this colorful, fun platformer. Spyro the Dragon is an absolute classic and is only about $5 on the PSN. If you haven't played it yet, I highly, highly recommend downloading it. Hey guys, thanks for watching my first episode, it really means a lot. Bear in mind, the show is brand new, so I'm going to be changing some things within the next few months. I'm also working on getting some better camera equipment, so I should have better video and sound quality as well, but I have no idea how long it's going to take. If you have a game you'd like to see me play, by all means post it in the comments below. I can't promise anything, but I'll definitely check it out. Only rules, it has to be at least 10 years old. I am not looking at any game that is younger than 10 years old. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more, and share the video with your friends. Who knows, maybe you can argue about what games really do hold up. Probably not, though. No one does that. Just me. Well, see you in 2 weeks.